You did a great job. You did a great job.
Let me tell you something about Tom before you get started. I'm going to tell y'all one good story here, and then I'm going to shut up. But Tom is a pretty good guy, and he does everything pretty good. He builds things, and he flies things, and he drives things. But one thing he does not do well is kick a soccer ball. Back then, the first time our church sent a group of people to Katrina, we were camping out on the ground and sleeping in tents. And we were cleaning up houses, wrecking out houses. We were tearing up people's houses and throwing their possessions out on the sidewalk for the trash man to come in. I mean, we were tearing up everything. And it was hot, and we were sweaty, and we were dirty. We were wearing full masks because of the possibilities of things. And Tom was taking a load of trash out and dumping it. It's not trash, it was their possessions, you know, like their microwave and their floors and everything, furniture, clothes, everything, dumping it. So he was a little bit frustrated, and last time he had dumped some, he'd seen a football down there, and he dumped that stuff, and he saw this soccer ball. And he hauled off, and he kicked the heck out of it. It's a bowling ball. I can't remember whether he either broke his toe or broke his toe. He come limping up the sidewalk, and I said, "Tom, what's wrong?" He said, "Kicked a soccer ball." It was a bowling ball. I said, "Tom, I don't believe I've told that." Okay, Tom, it's your turn.
Well, since my segue into that is you're talking about somebody feeling pretty foolish. That had to be me that day. And we had some young volunteers from the church down there, some young couples that were working with us. And I sat down on the ground. I was, you know, about to cry, or actually I was crying. I put on my work boots, and my big toe on my right foot was turning black. And I thought I'd broken it, so I was trying to get some sympathy out of Margaret to go there with us. And there was no way she was going to give me any sympathy, so I was sitting down there, you know, trying to get her to, you know, feel sorry for me, and she just took a look at it and said something like, "Well, you fool," and then kept on walking. So I had to suck it up one more time. Well, all right, what a great day God has sent. Isn't this wonderful? Look at this crowd. Somebody get an offering plate, quick. I don't think we've ever had an attendance like this in this room. Alice, do you think we have?
I don't believe so.
Alice is our secretary. She's been that way ever since Susan and I have been members. And how many years is that, Alice?
I lost count.
Don't count. Gave up a long time ago, didn't you? I'd also like to welcome from the church staff John Herring and Art Wilder, who are back in the back. And thank you all for dropping in today. What a great opportunity that is. And if we missed anybody being introduced, we apologize, but I think we got everybody in there. And again, thank you so much for blessing all of us by coming. The Derisos are going to have a reunion right after this class ends because we can't ever get this many people together normally, so now this is really going to be a big treat, isn't it, Mike? It sure is. And Aunt Dora came all the way from Fort Collins. Wow.
I love you.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And also the small group that we're in, or all those folks showed up here today. What a great, great honor to have you guys. So thank you all so much for coming. Well, I'll tell you what, we usually go around and ask a question to get started, and we always set in a circular format to facilitate the communication process. You shouldn't have to be looking too much at the person's head in front of you. Now, normally, that's of course saying that you got a big enough room. Now, our room is pretty big, but today we still maxed it out, but you still may be looking at somebody's back of their head. But it shouldn't be too bad. I think you scattered in there pretty well. So thank you so much for coming out. Now today we're going to have a little bit of fun to kick all this off. I want you to know that I got a special deal here for you guys. And this, I wanted you to hear something. The title to the lesson today is "You Gotta Live Like You're Dying." And in 2004, Tim McGraw recorded this because his father had died, was getting ready to die. He had terminal cancer. And Tug McGraw, he was a professional baseball player, and he was dying, and he found him in the last few minutes, the last few days of his life. That's the whole purpose of this song, right? It's a special song for Margie and Jake too, because That marks a time in 2004 when they went through a personal tragedy with the loss of their daughter and our wonderful niece, Roseanne. So anyway, if you listen to this song, it has some great verses in there about live like you're dying, okay? And you know what? We all are dying, aren't we? Every one of us is going to die sooner or later. The only problem is we just don't know when, so we always have to be ready for the inevitable. But to get things started today, before we jump into it, I want to start on a lighter note. You ever watch the Johnny Carson show when you were growing up and Johnny was the great cognac? I have an envelope right here. I'm looking for somebody to please tell me the name of a singer whose name is written on the piece of paper in this envelope. Who'll start it out? Don't delay the thing. What about you right here? Go ahead, Chuck.
Elvis.
No, not Elvis. Wrong gender. Okay, now I give you a huge hint. All right, go
Dolly
ahead.
Parton.
Dolly Parton, that's getting closer. All right. Not quite bad. Go make another bid.
Lynn.
Not bad, not bad, not it.
Reba McEntire.
Patsy Cline, that's not bad. That's a
Whitney Houston.
Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson.
She has very long hair.
That's a sister.
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston, that's pretty good, but not quite there either.
Faith Hill. Faith Hill.
She sings country.
Martina McBride.
Ooh, that's getting close. That's getting real close. Y'all about ready to give up, or you? No, not quite there either. Okay, she's from southern Mississippi, married to another singer.
Faith Hill.
Who said that? Congratulations.
Bill said she said.
Are you open? Oh, we got I promise you I didn't tell her in advance. Inside there's a mystery coupon worth several $100s at the restaurant of your choice in East Cobb County. Please enjoy that.
Thank you.
And she's kind of pretty too.
I don't know, I thought it was a joke.
So thank you for playing Raise the Envelope. That was a lot of fun. And now we'll go ahead and just talk about today's lesson. I wanted to start off on a lighter note. But today's lesson really is on the sermon series that Brian has done recently, Faith, Hope, and Love, out of Romans primarily. And today we're going to have a discussion of those with scripture to support that. I believe Dave Macon has already passed out some scripture slips for you to read. And I'd like to go over all those, and then we'd like to get, at the end of that, I have 3 recommendations from me to you on just ideas on how to live your life. You can take that to the bank, and for that and $2 you can probably get a couple of Starbucks, you know. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about what this class is meant to Susan and I. Now, I'm praying that I'll just stay between the lines, okay? I did have a little bit of help preparing this from one of our good friends, Everett Anthony. But I'm just trying to keep it between the lines, okay? I'm not a preacher. I'm not normally a Sunday school teacher. A lot of you have a deeper biblical knowledge than I do. And so if you see me deviating like that, just steer me back on in between those lines, will you? It'll be okay. You won't hurt my feelings a bit. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Faith, all right? People struggle with their faith daily because they're afraid to put their faith in God. That's exactly what Bryant said in his sermon on faith. I listened to all 3 of those again, went over them, and that's exactly what he was talking about. But I'd like to ask you a question. Can you name a few biblical characters who were afraid to trust God, or who were impatient, didn't wait on God, right off the top of your head? Abraham and Sarah. Now, what happened to Abraham and Sarah right off the get-go? I mean, you know, what did God promise them? Okay, all right. And then who came up with the idea to, hey, we're getting old, you're 100 and I'm about 90, what's going on here?
Sarah.
All right, very good. And then what happened? She came up with what was that servant's name? Was it Hagar? Okay.
And Abraham was so reluctant.
I tell you you what, you didn't have to ask him twice. Okay, well,
He was
anyway,
90
that,
something.
huh?
You gotta remember he was 90 something.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They should have had a clue, somebody named Haggai. Whatever.
Well, anyway, so that produced the seed of discontent that still, we hear that today around the Arab world, don't we, with Ishmael's descendants, don't we? So anyway, that's somebody who did not wait and were not faithful. They're afraid to put their faith in God. Okay, and later on, Abraham's going to redeem himself. We'll talk about that later on. How about you? Do you have faith in things around you that God has provided? Can you think of something you have really good faith in that you know pretty well is going to happen? I can give you a great example of that. There's a lot of people sitting in this room today. You must have some faith in the chair you're sitting on that it's not going to break and throw you onto the floor, right?
Ted's not too sure.
You know, the faith, we always assume things are just going to go right. So we assume that the workers who welded the legs on these chairs were competent and they built a quality seat. We're not going to fall down. So that's a pretty simple example of that. But isn't that having faith in something? All right. What about athletes that are on the court or the field when they do something big for their team, you know? Who do they put their faith to sometimes?
Themselves.
And what are they doing when they, like Bryant said?
Me.
Okay? They're placing their faith in themselves, aren't they? All right. Can you think of an example, though, of an athlete who has recently given credit to God when things go well?
Tebow.
Absolutely. Isn't that a great example to see the Tebowing out there? And you know what? When he really caught a lot of flack from the press for that, and that young man said, you know what? I'm just glad the discussion's in the forefront. That's great. Bring it on. So he took that criticism and turned it around into something positive. So what a faithful young man. What a wonderful example of athletes who have a great grasp on the younger generation in our country. What a great shadow that is casting upon them. So that is just a great person that I'd love to see that continue with. Okay, now there should be some Bible verses in the audience, so I'd like to ask you guys, does anybody have Hebrews 11:1? Okay. Who said that? Margie, would you go ahead and read that, please? What is faith?
Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see.
Okay. Great. It's kind of like when you, something that you're hopeful for, but just cannot see it. All right. Now, can you name some examples of some biblical characters who totally trusted God in their faith? Later on, okay? This is where we're talking about Abraham. You know, Abraham, he really messed up there having Ishmael, but later on, you know, Abraham really did quite well, and he was blessed by God later on in his life.
David, I think, did.
Oh, that's a great example. How do you think he mustered up the strength to get that sling together and go out there against that giant?
I don't think he thought too much. I think he just knew God had provided. He just did it without thinking too much. We overthink.
Boy, that's a great example of faith. What about who built the ark?
And Sonia.
How about Noah? You know, he had that vision. God told him to build that ark and take all those living things in there because he was going to flood the world. What about those people that came up and they laughed at him as he built it? Did that demonstrate any faith there?
Moses.
Okay, Moses is on the list. What did Moses do that was so much that demonstrated his faith?
He went up to speak to Pharaoh even though he had a speech impediment, but he went anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think it, also he had seen the presence of God, and he knew how to lead his people out of Egypt. Do you think that took a little bit of faith to